I can't help it. Maybe I'm just a cynic. I'm looking at what's going on over at Meta, and I'm kind of just asking some questions. Did you see who the new employee is on the board of directors? They brought in none other than Dana White, who's terrific, of course, and a longtime Donald Trump supporter. I want you to see him here on election night.
Nobody deserves this more than him, and nobody deserves this more than his family does. This is what happens when the machine comes after you. What you've seen over the last several years, this is what it looks like. Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward. He doesn't quit. He's the most resilient, hard-working man I've ever met in my life. His family are incredible people. This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve.
Yeah, he's right about that. So that's Dana White. He runs UFC, and UFC has been great to Trump, and there's been a tremendous base of support among those UFC fighters, and you've seen Trump at those fights. Zuckerberg is hiring him to join the board of directors of Facebook. And I mean, I think it's a little interesting. It's a little bit strange. And you got to ask yourself, has Mark really had a change of heart? I'm not so sure about that. I think Mark is a smart business person, and Mark understands which way the wind blows. I hope he's had a change of heart. He did make some comments, if you recall, on Bloomberg Television, saying he was blown away after the president was assassinated, nearly assassinated, in the way he stood up after that assassination attempt and rallied himself and the crowd saying fight, fight, that it was just remarkable, and he was blown away by that. But you also have to remember some of the things that were done along the way. I mean, after all, the Facebook canceled his account, and that had to have gone all the way up to Zuckerberg. So does that change now? I mean, there's some reasons to believe it might. In terms of the motives or the authenticity of it, I'm not so sure. But here's Jason Miller, senior advisor to the president, very instrumental in the campaign, speaking to CNN about this very issue.
Story that there was a Politico story about a new book that's set to be published next week from your boss, the former president, that says that Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, plotted against him during the 2020 election, and that the Meta chief executive would, quote, spend the rest of his life in prison, end quote. We also, of course, saw Zuckerberg send a letter to Congress expressing regret about some of the things Facebook did during the last election around misinformation. Does the former president feel this way about Mark Zuckerberg? Does he believe that he should go to jail?
Well, President Trump certainly had a right to be angry at the time, and especially looking back at the censorship that went on in 2020. I mean, they used this guise of Russian misinformation to outright censor a story that turned out to be very true with the Hunter Biden laptop. And it did manipulate the election. In fact, a post-election study from the Media Research Center said that 1 out of every 7 Biden voter would have looked to go a different way, possibly to President Trump, if they knew about the truth of the foreign business dealings and everything else on Hunter Biden's laptop, specific to Joe Biden and the international.
And is this a jailable offense in your view, in the former president's view?
I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that up to the lawyers to go and discuss that. But I do think that there was blatant election interference, and there should be some accountability to that. It can't just be a talking point from the left. People have to be held responsible, especially those 51 intelligence officers, for knowing that that was a lie and pushing this Russian disinformation hoax. But again, the important thing here is it's not back in 2020. We're talking about the future, but a future where we're going to have record low inflation, a secure border. We're not going to have these wars popping up everywhere. And that's where I think the difference is in this campaign, is that President Trump's going to put more money back in people's pockets, but he's telling them exactly how he's going to do it.
So you can see Jason is he's making the pivot there to all the good things that were going to happen that were conducted before the election. So he's referencing the campaign, et cetera. But the reality, I think, the big takeaway there is that Zuckerberg realizes that the train has left the station. And yes, good things are going to happen. And he wants to be in on that. I mean, it's one of the reasons why he ran down to Mar-a-Lago, did he not, to go have a meeting with former elected, newly elected, soon-to-be president again, Donald Trump. And I think, it's possible that he had this change of heart. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think a lot of people are suddenly realizing that this movement is because of someone. Because somebody is willing to stand up. And we haven't had that. Let's face it. Nobody's had that. You go all around the world. I'm in Switzerland right now, and people are excited about Donald Trump.